Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien versus Predator Galaxy podcast, the original Alien and Predator podcast. This is regular host Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks, and joining me as always is my fellow Comtech, my fellow Predator Shrine, and less interesting is my fellow Predator Queen. It's the base unit. That's the theme I was going on.
The Predator Queen?
Did I say Predator? Alien Queen. Fellow Alien Queen.
Predalien Queen, maybe. But
Yeah, what? In the game?
yeah,
In the
that's
game.
right. RidgeTop. Yeah, I'll go with the other monikers. Thanks.
You know what? Normally
Or
I would
Adam is
re-record
my
that
real
one,
name.
but that one's good. I like that. And also making his podcast debut is the reason we're all here. I certainly wouldn't have bothered if it was not for him and the foundation that he'd laid many years before we all came together. He's the technical backbone of the website, the guy who does all the extra information that we aren't doing because we're focused on the current events, shall we say. He is the founder of AVP Galaxy himself, Darkness.
Hi guys, nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, joining us for the podcast. Finally, Mr.
After
Darkness.
what did you say it was, Adam, the other day when you did that post? Was it 12 years of podcast?
Yeah, no, your first podcast you did with Mike was 2011, I believe.
12 years of podcast, and he
Yes.
finally makes his debut. That's funny. We were talking off the camera, weren't we? And it's not really your thing, and
Yeah,
it makes me laugh because I'm such an antisocial person that suddenly has to do all this stuff with all my fellow nerds. But yeah, it's nice to have you on the show, D. Finally.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to be doing a retrospective on AVP Extinction.
But wait, we have to do.
But before we lead into all that, as is tradition, when we have a new guest on the show, we've got to learn about our new guest's history with the franchise. So I'm going to hand it over to Darkness for how he got involved in Alien and Predator and the website.
yeah. I think it was during the mid-90s that I remember that ITV were showing like the Alien trilogy, like on one weekend, like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I watched it through. It stayed up really late to watch each one. I think though I was already quite well aware of Alien before that though, so I do think that I must have already seen Alien before that because I was very aware of it. Just can't quite remember when though. And I think I'd seen Aliens as well, maybe before that as well. But Alien 3, I think that was maybe the first time I saw it. And I'd always really liked the Alien films. I think growing up, even I would always like watching Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween. I was quite big fans of them as well. But it was always Alien and Predator, really, that I had this fascination with when I was younger. And Predator, I remember vaguely renting it at the video rental store back in the 90s as well. But again, it's like with that one, though, I feel like I was already aware of it, of the franchise before that. So I think I have seen them before that, but that was about 96, maybe when I was about 11 years old. And then obviously DVDs were just coming out in late 90s, early 2000s, and I immediately got the Alien trilogy. The Alien Legacy box set.
Legacy.
Yeah, well, that yeah,
that's right.
And I gotta remember it was like 90 quid when it came out in UK, and there weren't hardly any extras on it. But it was
I remember getting mine from HMV one Christmas for like 80 quid.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I was just absolutely ecstatic to finally have them on, in my collection. And Predator, again, I had the 2-pack DVD box set, which didn't have any special features on at all. And then in 2001, they brought out the special edition of Predator, with all the special features on, and that's when there was a demo of Alien vs Predator 2 for the PC. I had no idea there was any AVP games or anything like that, or even I wasn't even aware of AVP as a franchise. That I remember the skull in Predator 2 and that, but I wasn't really aware there was a connection. And a whole
What
new
about the older games, like
No.
Trilogy or Resurrect? No, not at all.
No, funny. When I bought my Sega Saturn, I was about to get Alien Trilogy with it, but they refused because I was too young. So they swapped it out and put Tomb Raider in instead. So that would have actually been like my first Alien game. Yeah.
Tomb Raider is also a really good one, though.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say Tomb Raider was like groundbreaking at the time, wasn't it? So, and that were a 15 certificate. I think I was 12 or 13. And yeah, so back to the Predator DVD, I got the AVP2 demo, and at the time I was just getting into PC stuff. I'd got my first PC in '99, so I started getting into PC games like SimCity, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and then I discovered this AVP2 that there was a game, of my two favorite franchises, and then I played the demo. Couple of missions of the Predator, and I thought, oh my god, this is absolutely brilliant. You get to play as a Predator, you can switch all the vision modes, and I was just playing it over and over again. And then I eventually got the full game, the big sort of PC box in the day that you used to do. I miss those actually. Instead of just you don't even get PC games now, do you? It's just digital codes
All on
and
Steam
stuff.
usually,
Full
or
downloads.
one of those other storefronts. Yeah.
Something we all lament, isn't it, as well, that one?
Yeah, I liked having the boxes on my shelf and stuff.
Same.
And yeah, so, and then I was at college at the time, and I think after my first year of college, I was sort of wanting to make a website about something. And at the time, I was very much playing AVP2. So I decided, let's do something about that. And I did like the summer of 2002, creating pages and stuff about it, and that's when it was launched.
Was that the free serve
Yeah.
one?
My God, how do you remember that?
Because
Yeah,
I'm a nerd and I
that used to
remember our
be-
history.
That used to be my ISP at the time. I had no clue what the hell I was doing. I thought, because I was thinking, is this something maybe that I want to do as a job, website design stuff? So that's why I did it. But I was always doing like fun little projects in like Excel and coding and stuff like that during college. I should have really just done web design, but there wasn't anything like that course wise. So
It's the exact same thought I have about spaffing away college.
yeah, and so yeah, I launched the site in October 2002, just as a fan site for the game. I always used to visit Planet AVP quite a lot.
You always liked Shipley, didn't you? I never did. I was an AVP News kind of boy.
Do you know, can't really remember that much visiting AVP News. It were always Planet AVP that were my sort of usual haunt for news and stuff. And at the time I was just like, when Shipley were posting news about the site, I was like, just wow, I can't believe he's actually posting about my site. And I was ecstatic about it. So, and after obviously, the game died down, I thought, it's not going to last forever, is it? A game. So I branched out to the movies and, started focusing on the films and getting back to that. And that's what, the site encompasses everything now, but it's very much based on the films and what they did.
Yeah, because you exploded with AVP. Yeah, I mean, that there's no other way to describe the way the website's popularity and reach got back then. You know, you literally exploded.
Yeah, and I kind of just wish I were a bit older because I feel like I were, I didn't even have like a domain name or anything or web hosting or anything like that, and I was just surfing from free web hosts to wherever, and then Planet AVP, and obviously when movie came out, AVP, I just what was all this time I've wasted on a fairly poor movie. Although I do like AVP. Well, I don't say I like it, but it's better than it's better now than I thought about it at the time. And obviously since Requiem came out, I feel it's a hell of a lot better film for that.
Isn't there a word for reevaluating your opinions on films because subsequent stuff's much worse? I'm sure there's a word or a
Yeah.
phenomenon to describe it, but yeah, that's
It's
definitely
sad, really.
the way things have gone.
Yeah, it's sad, really, that a poorer movie has to come out for you to go back and reevaluate the one that you saw. I feel like that with The Predator, because at the time I didn't think it was that bad. The Predator, I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than Predators because I just saw
get out of here right now.
I saw Predators in the cinema, and I know you two love it, but I just felt like it was more or less a remake of the first one, even using the same music. So I thought I liked The Predator for doing something different. And then when Prey came out, I thought, oh, that is absolutely brilliant. I thought, I know I need to go back and reevaluate The Predator now because Prey was just so original, wasn't it? And it's completely fresh to anything we'd ever seen.
I think we also cannot praise Prey enough, can we, Adam?
No, I mean, we all love that one.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. And it's nice to finally see it get some merchandise this year, finally, and hopefully a physical
T-shirts.
release.
Woo!
But yeah, I mean, thank you for doing that, D. Like, I mean, for starting that site when there were other fan sites out there, I think we're probably the last of the OG, of those fan sites. Most of the others have
fan
all
sites don't exist anymore.
gone.
It's fan groups and fan pages on Facebook. As a community, as a website, it's just not a thing anymore. It makes me sad because I remember the days. I remember the days of a new website popping up like every other month, and yeah, a lot of them didn't stick around, and sometimes some of them turned out to be dickheads running them. But it was that time in the late 2000s all the way up to 2010. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the community, the sense of competition we all sort of gave each other as well, but also the friendliness. I mean, me and you were competitors, weren't we, when we started? But here we are 20 odd years later, working on on the same place. It was a good time.
I do miss that sort of era though, with the where people did use forums and that was all there were, bulletin boards. And then obviously Facebook came out and changed everything. I do see the benefits of Facebook, but I do miss the old school forums and stuff like we used to go on AVP Freaks, didn't we? Me, you, and Ian, and had some fun times there.
I mean, we all had our own boards as well back then, didn't we?
I never even heard of AVP Freaks. I had mainly gone to Planet AVP and AVP News, and AVP 2 seemed to be pretty significant for all of us getting into this stuff. And I would go to AVP Galaxy back then as well, but it wasn't really until the hype for the movie started building that AVP Galaxy was the main one I visited, because that was the one where you guys were just so consistent on the upcoming news for the movie.
Well, it was just D. It was just D at that point.
Oh, well, you were, Michael, then.
Yeah, back in 2004, yeah, I tried to sort of pull my finger out and start reporting on every little facet of the AVP film. But yeah, it was
Still didn't
just
like the books. You still didn't like the books and comics, though.
I like them. I like them a lot more now, and I have gone through them all. Well, not the crossovers. They're still on my list, but I have recently gone through all the Alien, Predator, and AVP comics.
Good. I
Yeah,
remember having to fight you on that.
at one point, I always, yeah, I will always sort of, what's the word? Just completely disregard the stuff in the comics because it's so out there, the expanded universe, and a lot of the concepts are so not really what you're gonna see in a film. Are they really?
That's why they're fun. It lets them play. Lets them do different things. I'm never gonna see Blue Marsalis in the films, and that wounds me. But I at least get it in the books.
And folks are going to be like, "Is this just a nostalgia episode?
No.
Are you talking about
Well,
Extinction?"
I mean, in some ways, it's going to be, yes, because we are. The point of this episode is a retrospective discussion on Aliens versus Predator Extinction, which would have been also the first game that you covered as it was. No, it wasn't as it was coming out. It was towards the end, wasn't
No,
it?
it was. I remember covering when it was called Natural Selection. I remember sort of the occasional news post of, in 2003, early 2003. Just I were always like I always had like a negative opinion of it early on because you know I were very much into first person shooters and I loved AVP2 and I couldn't really believe that they were sort of abandoning the first person shooter genre and not only that but abandoning the PC fan base. I mean, I can see why they did it, you know, at the time it was obviously more profitable, wasn't it, to put out console games and I'm
That's
not
been a
sure
fairly
actually.
constant, I think, since those years. Yeah.
I'm not sure how many units Extinction sold actually. I don't know if it's anywhere, but don't know if I doubt it was more than AVP2. But yeah, I didn't really think much to it, and I just disregarded it, and just didn't really post about it that much. And real time strategies is something that I've never really played before. That obviously Command and Conquer were quite a big thing, wasn't it, in the 90s? And I
Mm-hmm.
remember playing the demos of that.
So that had a port on the PlayStation 1. Is that right, Adam?
I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with the Command and Conquer series.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think so, though. You know, you would see some RTS games make their way to like PS1.
yeah, and I'd never really. I mean, I can't imagine that many people who are fans of AVP2 and that would be that interested in real time strategy. So I just completely disregarded it. And when it came out, I remember renting it from the rental store, and
The days of video game rental. We are this old, guys.
yeah, and it's a lot of money really back in those days, 40 quid for a game. So I just rented it quickly and played through it. I remember frantically writing down all the in-game canon stuff for the website and getting it all written down. That's one thing I probably would never advise though, is to sort of blast through a game in a short space of time. I feel like if you're going to be doing reviews and stuff, you should you take your time with it. Don't rush it. And after that, I just swept it under the rug and just forgot about it really. And I mean, I had a PlayStation 2 and I loved, SSX were my big game.
That's right. SSX Tricky. That's one of my
Yeah.
faves.
And I didn't really play on my PlayStation 2 as much as I should have done, really. So I wasn't really a massive console gamer until maybe the PlayStation 3 came out. And it was about 3 years later, 2006, when I finally bought the game again on eBay and gave it another go and thought, hey, this isn't actually as bad as I originally thought it was. And I quite enjoyed taking my time with it and playing it through. And definitely, I mean, I never played the original StarCraft. I know that's what the inspiration was. And I don't know if you guys have played StarCraft 2, have you? And
Not to the original.
yeah, and pretty much the Zerg is the aliens, Protoss is predators, and the Terrans are the Marines. And
Well, you have
yeah.
the alien quotes in there. I very distinctly remember the dropship sort of dialogue. We're in the pipe 5x5.
Yeah, StarCraft were very much inspired as well by AVP. But
as a concept,
yeah, and it were after that really that StarCraft 2 is everything really what I wished AVP Extinction was. And because there's so much stuff in StarCraft 2, what they did is really, really good. And Company of Heroes, I've been playing a lot on that real-time strategy in World War II recently. And again, I'm very much into sort of real-time strategy now. So I can look back. It's very, very light, is AVP Extinction. You've none of that sort of base building, and it's just unit management. But I think they sort of had to do that because it was a console game and controls are going to be extremely difficult. And I was playing it through on the emulator just prior to this, and yeah, it's not too bad. It's the controls are all right. I mean, I did notice, like with the Predators, I wish you could select your shrine at the same time, and it doesn't seem to select it. And
Yeah.
And
it's all right. There's a trick to that. You just have to do one of the shoulders and hold it at the same time.
Yeah, but I just think AVP Extinction could have been so much more. But I think that they did a really good job, though. I think with the setting it in the franchise and the classes. I mean, some of the classes in there we've never really seen in any subsequent games, like the Hydra. Is it Blazer, Predator?
Yeah.
Vanguard.
The Ravager as well. The Carrier.
I never really used carriers because
Me either.
I didn't want to sacrifice. Was it my Praetorian?
Yeah.
And I always just opted for a Ravager. You can't beat that, can you, really? So I never got to use carriers
chopping
that
people's
much.
heads off.
Yeah,
that's fair. Okay.
I think it was the last piece of AVP expanded universe material before the film, was it not?
Yes, because I think Thrill of the Hunt came out concurrently.
That was a little bit after, yeah.
Well, at least here it came out around the same time. So it would have been like a 4. When did we have it, D? We got it October. America got it August, the film.
Yeah, it were August, the film.
And the Thrill of the Hunt came out October time, at least over here, alongside the film. I remember picking it up alongside my Movie Maniacs 7. No, it was the Hicks model. It was the Hicks model.
Huh. Yeah, I thought 6 was when they did the whole alien thing, or maybe that was 7. Maybe they started with 6. I can't remember.
Or it might have been when it branched off into its own line, actually, because there was the box set in Movie Maniacs, then there was a line in Movie Maniacs, and then I think it got its own. I think it got its own figures, but it was the Corporal Hicks model. I went and picked up Corporal Hicks and AVP Thrill of the Hunt, and then went to watch AVP at the cinema in October of 2004.
And were you also disappointed at the time?
Well, let's not talk AVP.
All right. We won't get into that. We'll save that for another episode. But yeah, I remember I was into a few RTS games as well. I mean, mainly StarCraft at the time, but I was also into the Mech Warrior games on PC, and that had its own RTS game, Mech Commander, that came out after those. But yeah, other than those, I didn't have too much experience with the genre, but I was really into StarCraft at the time. And so it was cool because I had always felt like, oh yeah, that's inspired by AVP. So now we get the actual AVP as an RTS. So I was all for the idea, even way back then. As much as I loved AVP 1 and 2 on PC, it was cool to see it kind of switch up the formula. And I think I was a teenager when this game came out, and I was really hyped for the AVP movie at the time. So getting the game, I got it for the original Xbox, played through all of it at the time, and I did really love it. Oh, nice. You got both. Yeah, I think, I still have the Xbox copy. But yeah, revisiting it now in preparation for this on emulation, I still love it, but it does have its shortcomings. It does have its problems, its quirks. But yeah, you just have to wonder at the time, the development cycles, they're still crazy, but I'm sure even back then they may have been even crazier. So we don't know what kind of constraints they had. So overall, I really do love the game, but yeah, there's some serious flaws with it, I think. Especially now returning to it, I think I saw those rough edges a bit more. The crazy difficulty spikes out of nowhere with some missions. But I think you were right, Michael, in calling it RTS Lite, because yeah, it does not focus on the base management nearly as much, or really at all, I guess, unless you kind of have your bases, right?
The
But
Queen could be described as a base,
yeah,
and building the hive around her.
and you're setting up little temporary bases as the Marines, when you find like the micro atmosphere processors, and so there's also trying to get more currency to buy more units to upgrade your units as well. So it does have those RTS elements, but yeah, they did have to kind of keep it light because management is much easier with a mouse and a keyboard for those kind of games when things start getting more complicated. But it works on a controller fairly well. There's still some odd things where it gets a bit convoluted, like assigning different groups to the D-pads. I never really used much. So,
You found that convoluted?
I mean, maybe not.
I mean,
Maybe
it was
convoluted
just,
isn't the right word,
it was
but
like two buttons.
it's like, no, I mean, you had your whole D-pad. It's like assign different groups to it. But I'm like, why wouldn't you just all keep them as one group all the time? Because if it's a larger group, you're more likely to just survive.
Do your flanking maneuvers.
I see. I guess you were playing this in more advanced tactics than I was.
Only for one level, only one part of one level when I split my forces up. But anything else to say on the initial impressions, Adam? Or are you?
I mean, overall, again, I still love it. It was the first game, I think, in AVP to try something. I mean, we had really had our first person AVPs, and we had our side scrolling AVPs at that point. So it was the first one to really try something different, and we're seeing that now again with Dark Descent, which we're really excited for.
Cannot wait.
That one is more real-time tactics, I guess, more akin to XCOM, but I'm sure it'll share some similarities. Just the top-down isometric
A lot. I mean,
perspective. But
it's one of the things people started pointing out pretty much straight away.
yeah,
This looks kind of like an RTS Lite, like Extinction. So yeah, people saw it.
but it's something like the first AVP game I got for console, while I was very much getting into the fandom for the first time. It was great, and it'll always have that nostalgia factor helping it out for me, I think. But it would be awesome to see like a remaster, have Night Dive Studios do it or something, finally add competitive multiplayer. That's the thing that's odd too, is it's just campaign. You think of what they could have done with that. They weren't really doing procedural generation at the time, but if you just had like, here's a procedurally generated level or whatever, and it just seemed so ripe for multiplayer. Xbox Live wasn't really established at the time, but I think that format of what they built, if there was a multiplayer mode, it would have functioned really well.
Yeah, I think they were gonna possibly add multiplayer, but I think because at the time was there like an online adapter for PlayStation 2, but not many people really had it, did they? Oh, it wasn't.
So yeah, you had to get an additional network adapter for the PlayStation 2. The Xbox had an Ethernet port built in, but from what I remember from the interviews is that at the time they were working on Extinction, Sony and Microsoft hadn't really made the technology available to developers. So rather than delay the game and try and wait and implement it after the fact and push back development time, they just went, let's just do it. Let's just push it out as is. But I still... So I understand and can forgive the lack of multiplayer in the game, but I think it's the lack of skirmish that's not as forgivable, because, I mean, even back then, I think some of the other RTSs must have had a skirmish mode back then. So that seems like a pretty big omission, which I think is pretty much probably one of the game's biggest flaws and drawbacks for me, even after all this time. So what's my story? What's my story for the game? I don't remember really following it during press. I remember seeing bits and pieces on AVP News and bits and pieces on like Planet AVP, and I still remember seeing some of the early screenshots. And I was always up for it because, unlike UD, I had played StarCraft as a kid. I'd played it quite a lot as a kid, and the very obvious Alien and Predator and Colonial Marine influences were one of the things that I really liked about StarCraft. It was a substitute AVP in an RTS form. And so, even back in school, I remember drawing concepts for an Alien and a Predator RTS, and what the interface could sort of look like based on my experience with StarCraft. So I was always very much up for the idea. I never finished it as a kid, as a teen. I never finished the game because my first copy of the game was stolen by a boy a year older than me who I'd lent a copy of the game, and I'd lent him my copy of AVP, the novel, for the film, and I never got them back. And I eventually got them probably around the time I joined up with you, when I was in college. And I remember staying up late playing them on my Xbox, and I never finished the game. I hadn't mentioned the difficulty spikes. I got to the last mission on 2 of the campaigns. I cannot remember which, and I got to the 6th mission on one of the campaigns, and I can't remember which. I just couldn't get through them. It was, at the time, I found it very difficult, but I never had a bad memory of the game. I remember thinking it worked really well on the controller. I remember thinking the concept really worked for AVP. I still think that. But for some reason, I just... The console games of this era, Concrete Jungle and AVP, Extinction, I never really revisited. The PC ones I'd play again and again and again, but for some reason, not the PlayStation, not the Xbox ones. But when I saw the anniversary was coming up, I was like, well, it's time to finally change that. Let's talk about it. Let's go replay the game. Let's try and hunt down some of the devs and get that, get a story of the development. And I fucking loved it. I had so much fun replaying this on emulator. We used some of the graphical tweaks just to up the clarity of the graphics, and for the time, it still even looked good. The models were detailed. I think if anything, it was just some of the level art, the environmental art was a little bit on the dull side. This is something we talked about, Adam, in our first let's play of that first marine mission. I think the game is at its most visually interesting when it's in the jungle, when we're in some of the the interior bases, you know, the alien hive and stuff like that. But I just had so much fun. I think all the units worked really well. I maybe wouldn't want to see things like the Ravager or the Carrier in other other media or the stories, because it feels uniquely suitable for this kind of game and the unit variation that they're trying to meet in this game. But for the genre, I think it's brilliant and I love it and I had so much fun. I do totally agree with Adam though on some of the difficulty spike comments. You know, the second Predator mission in particular, if you watched our live stream of me attempting that for the first time, I think that was the most frustrated I got with the game, because
Yeah,
I
I
just
watched you playing that, and it was just. I did feel sorry
hard
for you
work.
because I just kind of wish though that they had have put difficulty level modes in so you
Well,
could.
there is. It's in the options.
Yeah, we were confused about that at first.
Is it?
You have to
Yeah.
go to the options in the main menu and then you can change the difficulty. But even on medium, it's some of the levels were rough. I mean, prepping for this podcast, I did have to use cheats to complete the game.
Yeah.
But for our let's play, I'll be playing it legit. I'll be, you know, playing those levels for real. But once you got to those later levels, it would just get brutal. I mean, you do have a unit cap limit where the highest one is for the aliens. I think you can have kind
45.
of close to 45 units. For the Marines and the Predators, it's usually in what, like the 20s or something.
25 for the Marine, like 20 for Predator, something
Yeah.
like that, I think.
I
So
think it's 12 for Predator, isn't it? 12 something.
I think it might
It's-
depend on the mission as well, because I know some of the missions are more specialized to you have a smaller group and you don't have ways of making more initially in some of the missions. And those ones I found really interesting, like the alien one where you're escaping from the lab, you have to free
Oh, that
more
was so
aliens.
much fun.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Predator 2 one only ended up being difficult because I didn't really know how to play the Predator in the end. You know, that was nice as well. There was variation in the ways that you should play. You know, you should play these characters. And I eventually learned that the Predator one should be skirting around the outside. It should be isolated pickings and skirmishes rather than getting into the thick of it, because then you up your on account and then you can call in more powerful units and then you can get into thicker, fights. So that second mission where I'm trying to run into all the units outside and then just get absolutely railed was a bit of a learning curve. I eventually ended up going around all the way around the map, cloaked, to get into the base where there wasn't as many people, and then picking them off inside to earn the resource. So that was probably the most difficult I found this playthrough, apart from the final two Marine missions. You know, there's a little bit of trial and error involved in how the game wants you to play or the best ways to play it. So like the 6th Marine mission, it was you had to kill these Predator anti-air turrets, so like the dropships could get around. And the moment you took one out, you just got every Predator on the map just came for you. And it wasn't until I eventually found one particular AA turret where there was like a little gully where you could set up a nice kill zone that I didn't get overwhelmed and failed the mission. And then the final Predator, the final Marine mission where you're in the Predator base, was fucking rock solid. And that was the
base
only
looks
time.
really cool too.
The base looked cool. It's like I said, the different environments look great like that. But yeah, I ended up having to split my forces on either side of a corridor on one particular bit and try and bait the Predators into coming down so I could kill box them as they came through. And those 3 missions were the game at its hardest, I think. But if you're unprepared for them at the time, like I was on that Predator 2 mission, yeah, big difficulty spikes. But in general, I didn't think the game was terribly hard. I thought it was easy to pick up the differences. If you did the tutorials, that helped as well. That explained the ways to play each species. But yeah, really enjoyed it. I'm not oblivious to its flaws. The pathfinding is probably the game's biggest issue.
I
I
was
had
gonna
so
bring
many.
that up. Yeah.
I had so many when I was playing the emulator. So many just wandered off on their own to the other side of the map. I couldn't really be bothered to go get them, so I thought, what's the point? Just let him die.
Just let him die.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that's a problem unique to this game. You know, I think that's an issue in RTS in general. But
No, I wouldn't say that. I've never had issues like that in StarCraft 2 or other RTSs where they just wander off.
maybe older RTSs then, should I say? But
I think the more complex the map gets, the worse it can get. I mean, as good as that last Marine mission was in the Predator base, those corridors were narrow. And when you had a group of Marines in exosuits going through those narrow corridors, they would just get completely lost unless you were like point to point to point to point using those waypoints.
well, I think it was any sort of enclosed environment, you know, like some of the caves, the marine base, you know, any sort of enclosed locations like that was when the pathfinding was at its worst, especially the Predator Shrine. But yeah, that would really be my biggest issue with the game, and I don't think it doesn't ruin it for me, you know. Maybe it's because I also kind of expected it or kind of remembered it being a problem, so it was kind of like didn't pee me off because I knew it was there, and a little bit of nostalgia forgives it. But yeah, still enjoy it. I'm aware of the problems. I would still call it a solid game, and I think if you like RTSs or if you want to try something, you know, you're an AVP fan and want to try something different, I think it's a good game to to pick up and give a go. Who wants to start us off with specific points, though? Anything else?
Well, I was going to say the story. I mean, it's we start off with this just awesome CG intro cinematic.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah,
watching that on a DVD that came with like one of the magazines that we used to get at the time, and just being absolutely fucking blown away with it. Anyway, D,
Yeah.
sorry, you were saying.
I always, you know, when I watch that, well, to be honest, I think that is the best part of the game for me is that sequence because I always sort of think how great a anime or CG sort of series would be set in the AVP universe, and I still think it's like one of the best, you know, segments I've seen. Really, I always loved that part.
Even more than the films?
In terms
The
of like,
AVP?
in terms of the animation, you know, I really liked that sequence.
See, I totally agree with you. You know, ever since seeing that, you know, I grew up on Roughneck Chronicles as well. So, you know, being exposed to CG animations of adult properties, I've been like, where's my Alien and Predator one of these? And it makes it even more wounding to me, this CG animation that's vaulted up in Disney somewhere, because I love those. It's the same guy who did the later Starship Troopers animated films, and it all sort of stems back to, you know, this intro piece and those Roughneck Chronicles CGI moments where I'm still sort of, after all these years, like ready for my AVP animated thing.
Do you think they'll ever release it, that AVP?
If it's done, it's only got to be a matter of time. I mean, really, just going to keep that on the shelf forever? I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the first time that's happened with media, unfortunately, but I certainly hope with the attention that's been on it recently that it'll find its way out.
Oh god, yeah, man, that proper exploded since I transcribed it and posted it on the website. I'm glad to see so many other outlets picking it up, because it'd be nice to put a bit of pressure on.
Yeah, I saw it on
Disney.
I saw it on IGN. Yeah,
I think they were the
surprising.
first to pick it up
They
after
were.
us, and then it really spread. Yeah, but that was just something you saw a lot of at the time, because I think a lot of it was like the limited graphics of video games, right? They wanted to really impress you right off the bat, so they would have these more polished CG intro things, not only for the you know, before you'd start up the game itself, but a lot of times Extinction didn't have this, unfortunately, but a lot of times before sequences of the game and after, you would have little CG bits. Like Tomb Raider had a lot of those, the earlier Tomb Raider games on PlayStation. But it's something I felt was kind of lacking with AVP Extinction, actually, because you start that off so strong, and then two of the campaigns just end with you
Explosions.
blowing yourselves up and just blinding white light, and then no good job, no yay we win, no like any CG thing. So I do feel like, and I'm sure it was budget time constraints, of course, but I do feel like as cool as okay, so the story is pretty much told with these pieces of artwork, all great, by the way.
I'd love to know who did those. I'm gonna have to ask
Yeah,
when we
we
get
gotta
there.
find that out. Yeah, but it has text descriptions of essentially what's going on from chapters to chapter, and then the narrator will kind of give a little bit extra. A lot of it's just kind of rereading the basic story objectives. But I do feel there was room for at least a few, at least at the end of the game, give us some sort of end cinematic, something short. So it always felt like the story was a bit bare bones. Um, it was interesting though, especially the Predator side, where you find out that the Council of Ancients was just pitting these two clans against each other and just being total assholes there. And you had the Predators. I think you have a problem with, Aaron, the super honorable Predators. How they go in and it's like, oh, he let himself be captured, we have to kill him. And I'm like, we just had AVP2 where you're a Predator who gets captured, and that is not a thing. But so, and another interesting thing is this was the first one after AVP2 to call the dog aliens runners, and I think maybe that made it stick. So because they're still called runners to this day.
I think and it's another thing in this game. The games of this era, there was a nice bit of consistency between them. They were the runners. That's what we thought of them. And then the Praetorians as well. It was the terminology that made it into the lexicon of fandom, and that sort of goes throughout the games. But then there's other things in Extinction that I really like, and that is that is the sort of shared assets between AVP2 and Extinction. There's a lot of the same reused sound effects, used in different places, but also used for the same thing. Like the sound, the pain sound effects. That sniper when she gets hit, I think, is Johnson from AVP2, and Rich Ragsdale's music. There's a lot of reused tracks from AVP Classic and AVP2, but also a new title sequence and some new some new music for each of the campaigns, the species as well. That was great. But there's this consistency between the two that I think would probably have really helped with the development cycle, because they didn't have to do them, didn't have to recreate these all. And a little part of me is kind of like, yeah, that was probably maybe a little bit lazy. But then in some of the interviews, they were talking about it being a very purposeful thing to keep everything feeling connected, feeling the same, feeling all consistent. Yeah, I love Rich Ragsdale's music in this. D, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, we're reading the same thing, that they wanted to sort of keep it the same and use the same assets and stuff from AVP2. But yeah, I really liked the score. I thought there were quite a nice blend of the alien and Predator in there on each mission.
Rich Ragsdale does not get enough love for his work on this era, in my opinion. And I think that was something I tweeted a month or so ago when I was starting to do the prep for this, and it was just throwing some love his way, because do I like his music better than any of the other stuff? I think I do. I think I like Rich Ragsdale's pieces for the classic AVP2, AVP Extinction more than any of the other expanded and the other games.
They were really great, and if they ever do make another AVP game, it would be awesome to bring him back finally.
And he was, I think he did pieces for Colonial Marines as well. The old, was it Check 6?
Yeah, the cancelled one.
And at one point they were available on his website, and I think that's all lost to the depths of time now. But yeah, I mean, when I think of the music of when I think of like this era of gaming, and I think of the atmospherics, I think of his scores, his tracks. Like I listened to the original AVP came with a disc. I say the original AVP Classic, AVP 99. It came with an additional disc of Rich's music that you could put in. You could put in your disc tray, and if you were playing it without, if you were playing the game AVP Classic with like the no patch sort of stuff, it would play whatever was in your disc tray. I eventually learned that one day when I was wondering why the hell I got it was some poppy thing. It might have been like Hillary Duff. Why I was playing AVP Classic and I got Hillary Duff playing, and it was because there was a CD in my drive. But yeah, they gave this disc because they didn't want to compress his music down. They didn't want to do like the MIDI files and ruin it. So they done this thing of giving the disc and letting it play through while you were
That's
playing
right.
the game.
Yeah, you
And
would
it was,
you would have to have the music disc in there. I remember that now. You install the game. It's the same thing with a lot of older PS1 games, I think, too. Like you could just put the game disc in and it would play it as a soundtrack. I think Alien Trilogy might have done that
yeah.
on a PlayStation.
So yeah, I just love Rich. I just love his work, and I would often listen to just the soundtrack on its own. And I love that this game reused some of his older stuff. I'd be playing the game and I'd recognize like classics menu music, being in Extinction, but like the new um, main theme, it's the theme that plays during that um,
Is it
cinematic.
is this stuff available to download somewhere? 'Cause I don't think I've got it.
Probably on YouTube, surely. I mean, if you've still got your old EVP Classic, you should still have a copy of that CD with that additional CD with the soundtrack in it. But yeah, I'm sure it's on YouTube. So just to talk about the narrative as well. Sorry, that RidgeTop brought up earlier. I did like that. I mean, it wasn't a strong in-game narrative. Let's be frank there. It is, as Adam said, all primarily told through these texts on these loading screens with great art. But there was bits in the middle of the game that sort of like, or the missions that sort of like eventually became a thing later on. I think the second and third alien marine mission is you coming across these random predator devices as you're doing your normal objective, which then becomes the basis of like the fourth mission, where it's like, okay, I know we'd written these things off in the previous briefings, but we've figured this out. We want you to go and find a new one for that mission. So there was like little moments and little twists and stuff like that that would then show up later on down the line that I liked. It could have been stronger, but what it was doing, I think, was still entertaining. And it was also set between. This is relevant given some recent news about Alien Romulus. Extinction was set between Alien and Aliens. Like
Really? I did not know that. I always thought it was supposed to Alien 3.
Now 6 or 7 years before Aliens, I think, is when this game takes place. D, any thoughts on narrative or story?
From what I remember, I mean, you're not playing a game like this though for the story, are you? It's
Is the experience in the genre.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was all right. It's the story is pretty much what you'd find in one of the AVP comics, isn't it? And you've got quite a lot of variety in there: K series aliens and Pred Queen. Yeah, Pred Queen and Ancient Predators and everything. So I thought it was all right. I didn't mind it, but I didn't really sort of play the game just for, solely for the story. 'Cause it's all just on the text, isn't it? It's not full massive CG cutscene showing you everything. So I just want to get straight to the action and get on with it.
And I think that it's really entertaining chaos as well, which I think is one of the reasons that I kind of give it a pass in terms of there not being lots of voiceover or narrative going off in the middle of the missions, because once you'd got your forces built and once you were rocking up with exosuits and an army of aliens of varying types, I think the game really hit the nail with the flavor. There's just something so satisfying about killing all the various creatures and humans and predators and dragging them back to your hive and chest bursting everybody and then just rocking up with this literal wave. It felt like something from the comics. It felt kind of like the operations moment in Aliens. The game really nailed the flavor for me. Really did. It felt like Alien and Predator.
As far as like the narrative itself, though, I believe this is a recently terraformed planet that they've been mining, and the at the same time, this one Predator clan has been granted like exclusive hunting rights for the planet. They later find out another clan was also granted hunting rights, and it was all part of this ruse that the highest Predator clan, or whatever, the Order of Ancients, was pitting these two tribes against each other, and they had an old base on this planet for a long time. And so the aliens had been there for a long time as well because of this, and this is what causes this whole clash. You have this human scientist, Dr. Kadinsky, who creates an alternate strain of xenomorphs, the K series. So with each species, you have to fight your own species as well. I was surprised about that with the Marine campaign. You have these resistance camps that just enemy humans you have to fight. I don't think it really went into why they were a resistance force too much. But as the Predators, you were competing against that other clan. You had to kill one of your Predator members that was captured because it was dishonorable. And as the Aliens, you were fighting the K series.
It was interesting with the Predator wise, that I felt like it did, as much as I hate like the space Klingon stuff, I quite enjoyed the expansion that it did with like this idea of Predator bureaucracy and exclusive rights to certain planets and stuff like that, with a little bit of blood death competition thrown in there. It worked for me. I enjoyed that.
It was funny how offended the Predators were about the Predalien Queen. They were just like, one of our Order of Ancient elders themselves is going to come there with a nuke and you all die taking out this hive after you've killed all the aliens. It's like, wait, what?
I thought it was funny being a sort of mirror of the Marine final mission as well, though, where it was we just blow everything up.
It's like, you guys can't set a timer for that or something.
I was kind of, to be fair, once I set the bombs, I kind of like tried to get my units as far away as I could. Come on, guys, run!
I think there's like a 2-second countdown for both of them. But yeah, no, the final missions were fun. At least as the aliens, you get to survive. So
yeah, true. And then the alien stuff was, I think, set before most of the main events, but there was some degree of overlap in there that, for a lot of people is an appeal of AVP2. There's a thrill to the sequences where you like. I think the overlap generally comes around the chamber where Prince is captured, in that game, but it's a thrilling moment, and there's some overlap in Extinction as well. It was great to see like the alien hive that all the species would basically visit. In the Alien campaign, you establish that cave, that hive location, and as the Marine and the Predators, you have to go in there. So I didn't think that was. It didn't feel like the lazy sort of. I said that might be a mean word when I talk about AVP 2010, but AVP 2010 reused a lot of the same assets, and as much as I love that game, sometimes that bit did feel lazy, continually using the same levels. But when it came to like this, it was that same sort of thrill of AVP2 of revisiting the same places you'd been as other species. So that worked a lot for me with Extinction. And can I also call out how much I love that aliens can be dismembered? I will always love it when a game lets you do that.
yeah, when they're still crawling after their enemies. Yeah.
But to make Ridley Scott super happy, they can regenerate.
Oh, I must have missed that. Maybe mine all got killed. They got dismembered, but
yeah. So when they're crawling about, if you can get them back to an area with the hive with the resin, they will eventually heal enough health and grow their legs back. I love that.
Cool.
I thought that was so cool. I was like, yeah, Ridley Scott's so happy right now because that was.
I don't know if he knows about
that was something he envisioned the aliens would do, is grow back missing limbs and stuff like that. I think that was something he said in the commentary for Covenant as well. When that alien gets cut in half with the claw thing.
He's like, oh, it'll just come back.
Yeah, basically, if I remember my commentary right. But
some of the missions did have interesting objectives, though. Like when you find that captured predator, you see it like writhing on the table, as well as there's one where you have to find this android that's like missing his arms. That was a secondary objective, I think.
It was so useless in that mission.
Yeah, but he would still just follow you guys around. I even tried to repair him because you could repair androids with the contacts, but it wouldn't let you repair him.
It
was
wouldn't
like,
let him have his arms.
You can tag along. You can't pick up the turrets, though. I guess that would be one way the D-pad could be useful, is like keep your androids on the D-pad so you can set up all the turrets immediately.
Did you ever use the sentry guns at all in the campaigns? Because I don't even remember ever using them.
Yeah, when I was defending the micro atmosphere processors, which is how you gain the currency in the Marine campaign, I would usually place my turrets down then.
I found them very useful for that sixth Marine mission, where you were destroying the Predator anti-air cannons. I think I mentioned earlier, about being overwhelmed until I found like this little gully that you could set up the kill zone in, and I used the turrets for that moment there. Had one like either side. But yeah, in general, I don't think there were.
No, there weren't really many times to sort of like try and defend, and I love that in RTS as well, where you've got a few minutes and you've got to try and set up your defenses. Set up your defenses and just let them all come and just try and pick them all off. That's most fun for me in RTSs.
Did you have any particular memorable missions from this one, D? Any that sort of stood out in your mind?
I mean, I always thought it was quite difficult playing as Marines, because you've got your Comtech, you've got your medics, you've got your synthetics, and if you lose any of them, it's just game over, isn't it? Because you can't get any more once you lose your Comtech. So I didn't really like playing as Marines all that much, funnily enough. But for me, it were always the aliens. I think creating a hive and doing all that and bringing bodies back. I know it's time consuming playing as aliens, but I just think when you've got a full army of 40 odd aliens, you can just completely wipe out anything in its path, really. So that was the most fun for me, playing as the aliens.
I agree with that. Yeah, the aliens were definitely the most fun. And I was telling this to Aaron earlier, just the Marine campaign seemed to be the hardest overall. I mean, I know you have that Predator mission 2 difficulty spike, but overall, those later Marine missions, like, you really have to be on it. The whole fog of war where the map is just completely black. So exploration is a big part of this. And a lot of these maps are just total mazes, and you'll run into a lot of dead ends and have to make your way through canyons and stuff. But the aliens, once you built up a hive, it would really feel like you could just swarm anything. But that was another shortcoming of the game as well. What you mentioned, Michael, is that you could fail a mission like that. Like, I think I was live streaming one of the times with you, Aaron, when we were playing through this, and I was confused about this objective to secure one of the eggs at the end. So I just wiped out all these eggs, and it was like mission failed after I had spent 20 minutes doing this without saving. And I was like, oh God. That's another thing. Each mission has a par time that you're like aiming to complete it under, and you get these little gold medals next to the mission title if you do. And I know you were really after those, Aaron, but it's really the only achievements or achievement type thing this game has, I guess.
Well,
But
it was before the age of achievements.
that's true. Yeah, but you're not going to get those on your first time. Like a lot of this game is like you were saying, Aaron, trial and error, and the fog of war, it just makes it so a lot of times you'll just be wandering the map looking
What?
for that micro atmosphere processor.
Isn't that a typical thing in the genre as well?
Yeah, I kind of wish you could turn Fog of War off.
You
Like,
can.
There's a cheat.
no,
with
no,
cheats, yeah.
without using cheats. I mean, and sort of like,
But I mean, the game had ways to negate that, or alleviate that. The aliens. I think it was the cystic drones when it spat acid at a unit. If that unit got away, you'd still be able to track it through the fog of war. And the predators had like the vision modes where you'd
yeah, and you've got the
it then
motion tracker as well to help. So that's, yeah, I like how they've tied that in actually to the Fog of War, but just feel with that, makes it really difficult. Fog of War.
I don't know, because I also felt it upped the tension quite a bit, because you could quite easily stumble upon the wrong area, and yeah, in some ways that might be a little bit frustrating to then get absolutely nailed, and hopefully, unlike Adam, you've saved the game as you've gone along.
I learned that quickly is you just end up saving like religiously after you fail a mission, and you've spent so much time on it, and then you just immediately fail. Like a whole mission can just fall apart. You've built up your army. Like I was just replaying that alien escape mission again recently, and I ran in like into a wrong room that had like 3 turrets, and I was instantly destroyed. And I was just like, man.
I think there's a nice variety of the missions, though, in the game. I think we mentioned earlier one of the later alien missions is you are the aliens that have been captured, and thanks to the events of one of the Predator missions, where you're going to kill the Predator's going to kill this disgraced Predator. The ramifications then go into the Alien campaign, where they've damaged some stuff that allows the aliens to get loose, and you play these aliens that have got loose in the base and are then trying to establish a hive in the base, and then you have to go and release other aliens, and then get your queen, and then go and wipe everybody out. So I enjoyed stuff like that as well, because it wasn't always just you start with your base units, and you create your army, and then you go and do things. They did really switch it up with stuff like that. One of the Marine missions is you start without your Comtech. You start without a lot of units, and you've got to go hook up with the remnants of another unit, while also trying to keep this. I could never do it. I can't keep not Kadinsky, his assistant. I can't keep his assistant alive, Adam. That, I think, it's the 3rd Marine mission.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, that's some of those secondary objectives. They're pretty tricky.
Funny thing was, so you can set for your unit different attitudes or behaviors. You've got aggressive, you've got defensive, you've got stand your ground, and you've got no attack. So they're aggressive. They'll hunt. They'll chase down any enemy units they see. If it's defensive, they'll only react to them sort of attacking you, but they'll give them a little bit of a chase. Stand your ground is what it sounds like, and no attack is what it sounds like. And when I was playing it through, I had the unit set on defensive, and this unarmed scientist starts to go after and punch the aliens. And I was like, this is why you're not surviving these missions. And I tried to put him on like no attack and stuff like that to keep him out of the way, but yeah, I couldn't keep him alive.
I would typically always use defensive, just because it seemed if they were aggressive, they would just pursue for too long, and it would only be like a few of your units, and they would eventually make it to an enemy group and just get wiped out.
Yeah, so I was the same. I generally had them on defensive. It seemed like the better one. I would mostly flick between that and stand your ground. Like when we're hovering around an atmosphere processor or just trying to establish resource and stuff like that. It's just hold your ground at this location kind of thing. What about the control schemes. So reviews at the time complained about the controls, but I thought they were really well implemented. I thought that it felt natural for the console. Was this a case of like Resurrection, it being a little bit ahead of its time?
I think maybe. I mean, you just didn't have a lot of RTS on console at that point. The genre was more associated with PC, so it could just be people weren't used to it. I mean, you would see more with games like Halo Wars and stuff like that. Um, so, I mean, I found the controls fine. I think maybe they could have tweaked things a little further. I mean, again, the game is kind of rough around the edges, but the important thing I think was that we still have fond memories of it, and it showed that you could do AVP outside of just the genres we had seen of the side-scrolling beat 'em ups and more significantly the first-person shooters. The concept is great as an RTS. You know, it was just it felt like it wasn't fully taken advantage of with the lack of multiplayer. So if they ever did get around to a sequel, man, that would be cool, or even just a remaster of this one with extra features added.
What about you, D? How did you feel about the controls?
If you've got all your units in one place, it's all right. It's fairly easy. But my problem is if you're wanting to get around quickly to the other side of the map and everything, it is quite a slow process with your control pad. So I didn't mind the controls. Thought you could select all your units together and direct them off and what have you, and it worked all right for the most part. But I wish you had like a mini map and you could just click it to quickly go there, and then move multiple units at the same time.
Yeah, because I mean, on the mini map, you couldn't move your cursor and then direct them there. When you clicked, it moved you on the map. So I mean, there were small bits like that could have been a little bit more fluid.
I wish you could also like zoom out because it seems very very constrained the picture, and I
Yeah.
wish you could just zoom right out and see more of the screen at the time. That's something I had issues with.
Yeah,
Because
you
there's
have
only
three,
three. Yeah.
three camera modes. There's like really close, kind of close, and then still too close. But yeah, you did need one that was a bit further, I think.
I did like being able to zoom in and out, though, at least that little bit, because then when you were like stand your ground and you triggered some sort of encounter, and you could just zoom in and see the chaos going off on the screen. Oh, that was brilliant.
Another thing is you can't control the camera, but the game also has this mode when you pause, like a pause time mode in the options, where it allows you to control the camera. It's almost like a little photo mode kind of.
I bet you were absolutely chuffed to bits when you
When you
figured
first
that
told me
out.
about that, I was like, I'm sure it's like nothing, whatever. But you can zoom in quite a bit, honestly, and you can control the camera.
Can you zoom further out?
Not too far. I'll have to double check on that. I don't think you can zoom out further than you can just regularly in game.
So we haven't really I don't think we've said it all yet. You know, the game was developed by Zono Inc. and published by the big baddies that are Electronic Arts.
Yay.
Yeah,
The only game in the franchises they've done.
indeed. And Zono
Didn't last too much longer after this one, 2007.
4 years after this, they put out a Nintendo DS and PSP game.
I think they did a Dungeons and Dragons action adventure game, which is probably their biggest after this. I had read
And
they
before
did.
it was Metal Fatigue as
Yeah,
well.
I had read they did their previous RTS before this was Metal Fatigue, and I looked at images, and yeah, it does look kind of similar to AVP Extinction.
I think I remember they did Mr. Bones for Sega Saturn. I think I remember playing that on the demo.
Yes, they did. Mr. Bones. Yeah, I think it's some of the same guys. Jason Hoff worked on Mr. Bones, worked on Extinction. So, yeah, it was a shame. Like Adam was saying, about there still being potential to do more things after wanting a sequel, and it's a shame Zono didn't get to sort of reiterate on what they've done here. But as much as I enjoy the game, as much as I think it worked for a console thing, as much as like I enjoy Halo Wars demonstrating that bigger RTSs can work on consoles, if someone were to revisit the genre to do an RTS game for AVP again, I would want it to be a PC game. I want to see them take advantage of what the genre can do at its biggest. What about you guys?
I mean, I think you're seeing more now that they can handle both versions pretty well. I mean, some games I've been into recently are Jurassic World Evolution 1 and 2, which is a park builder, and I had never really been into park builders before. So that game feels great on PC, but I have friends who have played it on console, and it's more tailored to that, you know. So just like we're going to see with Aliens Dark Descent, you know, that's coming out for console, it's coming out for PC. I'm sure the experience for a game like that, where um, it might feel a bit more tailored to PC, but they're definitely going to make it work well enough on console. So if we were to see another RTS AVP game, I would like to see that, where yes, you have a tailored for PC version, but it also runs really well on consoles.
Yeah, I'd fully expect it to be on PC if they did another one. But it's like it's bound to be on consoles, isn't it? Because that's where the money is. So it's like Company of Heroes 3. That's that was a PC game, and they've just now ported it over to consoles. And again, I would have expected to see Company of Heroes on consoles, but they've done it. So I would expect another sort of AVP RTS to be on consoles as well, but hopefully get a PC release at the same time. I kind of don't think I've given Dark Descent really much credit, because I thought it were maybe too similar to Fireteam, which wasn't really my thing, but it does actually look a lot more like Extinction than I thought.
I think that was the initial response a lot of people had, at least from what I saw on the socials.
Yeah, I remember when that first trailer dropped and it just showed you a little snippet of gameplay at the end. People were like, "Oh, one of these games, come on!" But like, as they showed more and more over time, and the kind of depth you would be going into in this different style, I think it became more exciting for people.
I'm probably going to get that for PS5. I think.
Not
I'd
PC.
probably, it's not. I'd like having a physical copy, and it's coming out for PS5, so I want some on my shelf so I can keep.
Yeah, I don't have copies of Hunting Grounds. I don't have copies of Fireteam Elite yet either. Which makes me sad.
How long's the campaign? The single player stuff? Did they say in Dark Descent?
I can't remember.
So it's quite big.
Yeah, it's got to be in one of the interviews.
It's quite big, isn't it? So
yeah, well, you've got an entire planet. Yeah. Have you has your enthusiasm, sorry, for that game, should I say, changed? Are you looking forward to Dark Descent?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna get it. I'm gonna pre-order it and get it for PlayStation 5 and give it a good go. So I never really sort of got into Hunting Grounds or Fireteam Elite. I'm not a massive fan of massive online multiplayer games. I get bored fairly quickly, so I much prefer sort of single player campaigns.
I think unless you have those kind of games, unless you have mates that you're gonna have regular skirmishes with, they lose a lot. I think, those kind of cooperative games. But I'm very much looking forward to Dark Descent.
I mean, it's going to be the first game designed with single player in mind that we've seen in these franchises for, since
Years.
AVP 2010, really. So.
And there've been some remakes though of Extinction over years, and people have tried to get it done, and it hasn't.
Very nice led in for me, D. That was going to be the next thing I brought up. So, the game's obviously got a nice bit of legacy because there's been at least 2 attempts by fans to rebuild the game. We are in this age where this is a thing that people can do. They can attempt to rebuild classics. Adam, I've shown you that guy who's trying to remake the Jaguar AVP, haven't I?
Yes, and that looks pretty impressive. Real quick though, I have to correct myself. 2014, Alien Isolation was the last big single player.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yes, of course.
So
But yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lasting impact on the fandom that would lead to people trying to do this. Unfortunately, none of the efforts so far we've seen have amounted to anything. But I think that's a problem that you'll always have with amateurs doing these kind of passion projects. I think they take a lot more effort and involvement than people probably realize going into it. But I mean, even knowing that there's people who've made that start, who've started to put that effort into it, I think speaks to the volume that the game was probably liked a lot more than. Well, I mean, we'll see that reading some comments soon. You know, the game wasn't well received critically. You know, it was. I mean, it wasn't hated on, but it was very
No, it was
mixed
all
and
right.
poor. But the fans did seem to really like this, and as we get towards the end, I'll start to read some of the comments on the social posts.
Yeah, what I'd like is a StarCraft mod, just something simple, just to reskin it, make it all Alien Predator. I'm surprised nobody's done that.
Maybe people don't feel the need to, since it's so obviously inspired by, I guess. But no, I agree. It's this desire to see the genre revisited for the license that I think makes me want to see that.
yeah, if there ever was another, I feel like they could implement base building a bit more, like setting up a colony or an atmosphere processor, or making more of a big hive, or a predator camp or something like that. There would be
And
room for it to grow within the genre.
and like the Extinction, because it's a lot more scaled down. You know, it is unit management with a bit of resource management, but it's unit management. It's not such a high level, so you miss out on things like the dropships and the APCs. And you know, the Predator has access to this kind of thing as well. You know, they have their own shuttles, and some of the expanded universes
The hover
embrace things
bikes.
like the hover bikes. Yeah, so there's options there if they were to do a higher level sort of strategy game, and I would love to see that. I would love to see that involved.
Has there been much concept art for this game that's been released? Yeah, it'd be
No.
cool if we could find some of that. There's this really cool piece of art on the loading screens, though. That's like a Da Vinci redo of with an alien and a predator, and I always thought that was pretty cool.
And there's a very nice sort of what do they call it, Adam? The bestiary.
Yeah, so you can go in the menu and you can get views of the models of all the different units, and it'll tell you a bit about the different units and their stats and stuff like that. So,
Which is a nice way to sort of pad out the lore as well, because it's interesting reading about the unique units to the game from inside the bestiary. That's fun.
I remember the game had this really awesome promotional image too for some of the ads that was just this side profile of the alien, the predator, and the marine. That was like my laptop wallpaper for a long time, was that one. I always thought that was cooler than the cover art itself, which I think was kind of a reuse of some of the old renders from AVP. You know, the main artwork on the cover for the game. Maybe. I
Yeah,
might be
no,
wrong on it.
you're quite right. So again, during this era, when a lot of assets were shared around, you know, AVP Classic, AVP2, there was promotional art that used these CG models, CG renders of like the alien and the
That's
predator.
right. Those were from AVP 99, I think. Those renders initially.
Or for the promotion for it, you know, there were these wallpapers and stuff like that. I think one of them even ended up in the AVP card game, the collectible card game that they did back in the 2000s. I think it was the High Adjudicator. One of the promotional shots was used as artwork for that card, which was a Predator class. And of course, Thanatos Encounter also used one of those well-known alien images for their box cover, which was great. Right, do you guys have anything specific, anything else you want to talk about the game, or shall we read some of the comments?
I'll just be curious when we finally get to talk to some of the people who have worked on that game here for the next podcast to hear more about the developments. It's not a lot of it's out there, but yeah, I mean, just fun memories of this game. It may be rough around the edges, but it's definitely worth visiting again. I'll still be playing it after this podcast. I mean, I have to for our let's plays. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's a good challenge, and sometimes it's a bang your head against a wall challenge, but it's not out of reach. It's not crazy difficult.
How about you, Dig?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do like a I've been meaning for years and years to sort of properly replay it on emulator. I've always had this massive backlog of games to get through, and I've never got around to it. So I'm glad I've been wanting you to do like a let's play or live plays of Extinction, because it's one of those old games that I just always had a little bit of a soft spot for, and as I got older, I really got into real-time strategy a lot more. So it's nice to sort of look back at Extinction and what they tried to do with it. But it's not a total disaster of what I initially thought it to be. It's all right. No. I'd probably say I'd give it about 6 out of 10, which I think is. What would you guys give it?
I think a 6 out of 10 is fair, yes, but I think because of how well it pulls off the flavor of the franchises, I would probably go a 7.
I think, yeah, if I put on my nostalgia glasses, probably a 7, but objectively speaking, I think a 6 would be
fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. Okay, then let's read some of the comments then. Adam, you kick us off. I've sent you the Twitter thread if you want to read some of the responses that we had.
So this is by Luke Woolhead. It says, haven't had a chance to play the game yet. Only played for a few minutes to make sure the game worked. Just wish it didn't make me scared that playing it would break my PS2. Never heard that fan get so damn loud.
So that's actually a point. I think I did go back and read some of the reviews from the Metacritics. The initial reviews, and one of the reviews mentioned how when you hit the full numbers as an alien, the PlayStation did start to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I had it on Xbox and it seemed to run fine on that, but
that's because the Xbox was the powerful console.
That's true, but once you got more than a few units there, it would get a little crazy.
Have you guys still got the original consoles?
Xbox I do. My girlfriend has a PS2, so
I have a PlayStation, but my Xbox died a long time ago. It stopped reading discs, so I binned it. What was it called? Snake, I think my Xbox was called. No, I'm sure we've had this conversation. The Xbox has had names. They came from the factory with names.
Oh, that's right. Like one was Scorpio for the new one, right? Like
no, as in individual Xboxes had names from the factory. I had one. My family had 2. I had 1, and the family had 1. And I think one of mine was called Snake, and one of them was called Wicker.
Interesting. I'll have to look up more about that. So I forgot to mention this real quick. One last rough around the edges bit. As cool as some of the sounds were in this game, in those later levels, when so much is happening, the sounds just get overwhelming and loud. And like it's just noise. And yeah, I think maybe the sound mixing could have used a bit more time in this one.
See, I liked that because it contributed to this chaotic feel of the conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, the sounds themselves were good, and some of the reused ones worked really well here too. It's just when it began to be a bit much, I'd have to go in the menu and turn down like the sound effects because it would just get so overwhelming sometimes.
Okay.
Maybe it was just me. I don't know. Well, it wasn't just me because I watched a video recently. There's I think something like that. Did a YouTube video reviewing AVP Extinction. Well done video. Check it out. And also G-Man Lives did a retrospective recently. He's another big gamer YouTuber where he went over AVP Extinction. But back to the comments. Let me get back to the comments here. So the Count of S says, I absolutely adore the mechanics featured in this game, and the narration key art told a surprisingly compelling story. My personal highlight was realizing a small, balanced Marine fire team was greater than a giant clumsy force. Micromanagement was hard, but extremely rewarding for Marines. And yeah, you can, even if you have a giant force with the max units you have, you can die very quickly if you're not playing smart in this one. SS Fitzgerald says, I love the game, but the lack of replayability made it suffer. A simple skirmish mode would have made this game a great standout. Not releasing a PC version made modding non-existent. Yeah, I do think that would have helped, but at the time, the constraints, it's understandable.
Well, there was talk, I think, of them porting to PC. It wasn't outside the realms of possibility, but I think that probably the response to the game nixed that idea. Anyway, pick another couple more, and then we'll go over to Facebook.
Okay, this one's by @Havoc Deathwalker. A really solid entry in the AVP franchise. Though the game could get repetitive, the concepts for the different factions that this game brought to the table were wonderful. And specifically for the Xenomorphs, some of those are still talked about, like the Ravager or the Carrier. Jacob Proffer says, AVP Extinction was my first RTS. It was a bit to learn as a kid, but overall a lot of fun. I mainly only played the Marine campaign. I booted up my original copy a few weeks ago on my PS2. Still works just fine. Let's see. Bananarama Max says, I miss playing this a lot. I've had a lot of good memories of it. Showing it to my cousins and spending hours on the same missions, but changing approach to please them. Been a while. Yeah, so you're right, Aaron. A lot of people have fond memories of this. Mothra's Wing Photos, a super underrated fun game.
Okay, let's flick over onto the Facebook one as well then. So Dave Gogol, formerly of the Hive Mind podcast and Xenomorphing. I was absolutely terrible at it, but it was fun. RTSs aren't usually my thing. However, sending alien swarms out was fantastic. What else have we got? Dave Fisher says the fact it didn't get a PC release is criminal. This is the only game I wasted hours on one level as the Xenos trying to cover entire maps in Hive and constantly making Xenos as one level had respawning cows. Yeah, I liked that there was wildlife. That was something that only really games of this era did in the AVP sort of franchise. It will build the local fauna and flora in some cases, but I think this game introduced the Krillic, I think they were called. They were like these giant scorpion sized things that would then make it into Concrete Jungle, at least into the cinematics of Concrete Jungle, I think.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the indigenous life of the planet at all. You had the Grotee that you had to take
the
down.
legendary beasts. But it was random world building doing these creatures, but it was still fun. And the fact that it then influenced what type of aliens you could spawn. The game made you think about the DNA reflex. If you want a drone, you have to go and infect this creature. If you want a runner, you have to go and infect this creature. I liked that. I thought it was great. Matthew Georgiosa used to play it all the time as a kid and loved it. I never had the opportunity to play the AVP games on the PC, so AVPE gave me an opportunity to play something approximating those games that was a little less intense and a little more kid friendly. Yeah, because the FPSs were M rated, whereas this is at least in the UK 12 plus, so it's more teenage. Although Matthew's taking a turn here, in hindsight, it definitely pales in comparison to other real-time strategy games like StarCraft. The gameplay wasn't super in-depth, no base building, limited resource gathering, and despite all the unique types and specializations, the game was mostly just about creating more units than the enemy and then moving them in. It also wasn't particularly scary. That's partly why it was more kid-friendly, and even as a kid, I felt like it should be scarier. I don't know how well the God View of the RTS genre serves the Alien or Predator series. That said, I wouldn't mind seeing a spiritual successor with updated RTS game mechanics, such as the aforementioned base building and etc. And looking at games like Diablo and the upcoming Dark Descent, I'm sure they could come up with a way to instill dread in the player and still deliver a unique RTS experience. So I'm not quite as enthusiastic about the game we got, but again, there's ways to make the Alien and Predator work in an RTS that I think Matthew sees there. Daniel Sharp, I had a blast with it. Wasn't what I was expecting, but translated the lore to an RTS really well. Building up your own hive and swarming the Marines never loses its charm. Tom Fulton, something we've talked about here as well. My only reservations with it were that it didn't have a randomized skirmish mode or a PC port, both of which would have greatly extended its replayability. I'd probably still play it today if it had those. And a bunch more posts similar. A lot of love on the Facebook as well. Dee, did you want to read any Instagram comments?
Yeah, just looking at the Instagram, Tolby Wolfen says the game deserves a remake. It was my first turn-based strategy game, and it was so much fun. I wish the original had been on PC since my Xbox is packed away, not being used anymore. Malcolm Morgan 99 says, I miss this game so much. I wish they would remake for new systems. Rudy Boss is Boss GMG. This is one of the best games I've ever played. Charlie Spinoza, I miss that game. I hope we can see more at RTS. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of calls for it to be remade. Do something new with it, with the genre. There's still a lot of sort of desire, I suppose, but is it enough to sort of sell lots of units?
I don't think it necessarily should have a remake or a remaster. I think they should just fully commit to doing something new with the genre and the license. It doesn't need to be an AVP Extinction 2. It just needs to take that genre, take that concept, bring it up a level and do more RTS with it rather than this unit-based thing. Do StarCraft but with Alien versus Predator.
But is a new RTS though going to be more financially, beneficial than a new AVP shooter?
I mean, yeah, that's a fair
a tough
point.
one because a lot of people are missing those as well, and it's been a long time since we've seen any AVP game really. So
I think we're at this point where I think people would
anything.
quite happily crave
Anything.
both. Yes, it has been 13 years since an AVP shooter. A little less since we've had an AVP game that was pretty decent, to be fair. Evolution on iOS and Android. It was a fun game, but it's. I think since Isolation, the franchise has gone very double A in terms of what we're getting, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because I think I said this on one of the Facebook groups. It might have been the Wailing Yutani Bulletin, actually. It's a shame that Alien specifically has now got this stigma thanks to fucking Gearbox and Randy Pitchford and Colonial Marines. But every game after that has been great. Isolation has undoubtedly been one of the franchise's best. And even though all we're getting at the minute is these AA titles, they're still good AA titles. They're still really good experiences.
And Focus could decide to do bigger budget ones as well. I'm excited to see if they indeed have the Alien license or maybe beyond that. I don't know. I mean, they've had games like a Plague Tale that have been nominated for Game of the Year. They've done some really solid games. There's been rumors from Tom Henderson that an Isolation sequel is finally in the pitching phase, and we know Creative Assembly is hiring for something, so who knows. There's still the Servia survival horror game that's up in the air. Not sure what's going on with that, but
Nothing for AVP. Nothing at
yeah,
all.
nothing. Well, I mean, AVP in general as a franchise, all we've really had since the merger is the last comic from Dark Horse, Thicker Than Blood, and then the 2 novels from Titan, Rift War, and Ultimate Prey. So AVP is just unfortunately being neglected these days. So I hope Marvel Comics will like kickstart AVP again,
It's a shame because, I mean, Josh Izzo talked about it in his interview with Perfect Organism. It was a great interview. Go listen to that one from Alien Day. But he sort of talked about how, thanks to the reputation of the 2 movies, it had become this looked down upon property. Requiem, as much as Adam loves it, it is notoriously bad, or has a notoriously bad reputation. It's like I said with the Clone Marines, it's a stigma. And I'm just hoping Disney don't have the same outlook on it, because there's still a lot of really good AVP material out there. A lot of the original comic is still fantastic, and the games were fantastic, especially from around this era. This one might have been a bit more rough around the edges, but Classic and AVP2 were great. There's legs in the concept, and hell, Dark Horse went out on an absolutely fantastic end. Not Thriller, The Hunt, Thicker Than Blood was brilliant. Adam, you and I both loved that, and I would hold it as one of my favorite pieces of AVP material. So they went out on a high, and then the
agreed.
anthology, the
Ultimate
anthology
Prey
was good.
had some really good ones. A couple that were less so, but overall fairly solid. And we need to get around to Rift 4 already. We just need to do it.
To be fair, I don't have much hope for Rift War based on the 3 chapters or so I've read of it. But yeah, that's contrary to my point, Adam.
Oh, sorry. Well,
there
again,
is good AVP material, is my point.
They did bring that up in the press announcement for Marvel getting the licenses. They didn't mention AVP, so it's only a matter of time before we see Marvel start that again. So,
and to be fair, I wonder how much of that is again the lawsuit that messed everything up and probably killed Hunting Grounds. How does that affect the crossover? Because we still don't know the ramifications of that lawsuit on Predator. So we don't know how that affects any potential AVP material.
True. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Did they settle that? I thought
they settled, but we do not know the terms of the settlement, because the lawsuit was never over the copyright. It was over the dates of when things would revert. So we have no idea what's come of it.
The reporting at the time, though, made it seem like they had reached some kind of arrangement for Disney to continue managing the properties. But yeah, we don't know. Specifics aren't public, but we've seen licensed stuff since then, so one would hope that they came to some sort of arrangement.
And I think the thing to remember there as well is Prey isn't a Predator film in terms of branding.
True, but it was still specifically mentioned in the lawsuit. So
true. But we'll see. But that lawsuit did.
Got the Predator font.
The lawsuit did kill Hunting Grounds, and there's other things that we're aware of that it killed. So maybe that plays a factor into why there's no AVP stuff. Maybe that plays a factor into why we don't have the anime.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, we'll see.
And on that positive note.
Right, shall we wrap up, boys, then? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes. Unless anyone else has any other thoughts.
D, you talked out?
Yeah, that's enough for me.
Okay. Right. Well, everybody out there listening, if you didn't get your comment read out or you want to share your thoughts on AVP Extinction with us, please do feel free to post in the comments of wherever you're listening to this on, in not Instagram, on the Facebook page or on the Twitter page or on the website or on YouTube. Do feel free to let us know your opinions on the game below. You can also email us at podcast@avpgalaxy.net. We should, all being well, have a very nice interview with some of the people that worked on the game coming up soon, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I also imagine we're going to have lots of our time taken up by Tinderloss's Aliens Dark Descent over the next couple of months
June
as
and
well.
July.
Because we have some interviews lined up there, and we'll also have our review episode on it as well. Adam, where can folk find us?
So you can always find us on our website, avpgalaxy.net, where we have all sorts of features and information on the films and editorial pieces, as well as our message boards where you can talk with other fans. And we're also on all the major social channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Aaron, where can people follow you personally?
You can find me on Twitter @_Corporal Hicks, and that's Alien, Predator, Halo, Star Trek, all my various nerdy interests, and that's the only place I'm online.
And if you'd like to follow me personally, it's at RidgeTop21 on Instagram and Twitter. D, you getting out your social media yet or not yet?
Yeah, you can find me at Darkness7148 on Twitter, but I don't really use Twitter that much anymore. I check it occasionally.
Fair enough. So not the social bird.
I've got Instagram. In fact, I use Instagram every day, but it's more personal sort of stuff.
So no nerdy stuff.
No, I try to post some Alien and Predator stuff if I can. But...
Fair enough. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Oh, and as well, I've got to ask this every time now. I need to remember to. If you are watching this on a place that allows you to review or rate, the podcast or the episode, please do. It helps us with our... I hate doing this. I fucking hate doing this. It helps us with our visibility to other listeners, other fans. And if you know any other folk out there who are also into the franchise, who you think might be interested in listening to our ramblings, please do feel free to share them. Share the episodes with your fellow fans that you know of. Again, it all helps us. It all helps our visibility, and helps us make more stuff, or helps encourage us to make more stuff if we know people out there actually give a shit about what we're saying. So please do let us know.
And if you're going to throw that in at the end here, I will do one as well. So we actually
you've got to remember to do this now.
So we do have our first sponsor, Entertainment Earth, which is an online retailer, and they do offer a number of Alien, Predator, and AVP merchandise. So if you're in the market for those, if you use the URL ee.toys/AVP Galaxy, it really does help us out. It also gets you 10% off any in-stock item, as well as free shipping on orders $59 or more. See, I'm getting the hang of that. You can also just use promo code AVP Galaxy during checkout as well.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This has been Corporal Hicks.
RidgeTop.
This is Darkness.
And are you looking at me or the clock? Since that's the AVP side off.
Is that the official one now for all the AVP ones? All right.
Yeah.
I can go with that.
Cool. Right. Thank you, everybody.